This episode of the Adam Messer Show is brought to you by Valhalla Books. They have a new suspense and paranormal thriller coming out by Mark Allen Gunnels called 2B. So go to valhallabooks.com and check it out. All right. I wanted to give a shout out to our friends at Good Cause Marketing. Thank you so much. They sent me a holiday card. It says Happy Holidays, wishing you a happy, healthy holiday season filled with all things merry and bright. Thank you, Marianne Gannon-Popple and Kendra Demora. I hope you all have a great, happy new year. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. And as you heard, Nicole is on the line. Nicole Givens Kurtz is my special guest, and this is our second hour talking today. So thank you, Nicole, for being here and hanging out with me, talking with me about shop and writing and just, yeah, cool stuff. I really liked listening to you talk about, you know, Theft Most Foul and your world, Avis. Is that what you call the world, or what?
Yep, Avis.
Yeah. So this hour, I would really like to talk with you on some of the like your character development and, you know, some of the things that you like to do when you're working on like world building and that kind of thing. So, Sebastian, would you like playing a little bit more for us? All right, so here is Sebastian Messer. He's got, for everybody tuning in just now, he's got his electric guitar, starting off the new year with it. So here he goes. Awesome, Bass. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So, all right, Nicole. So, you said you had so much fun writing for this new series. When did the first book come out?
So, Kill Three Birds is the first book, and it came out in July of last year.
Oh, cool. How long did it take you to write it?
That one, maybe 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really, I told you, it was really fun. So it kind of came. One of the great things about writing is something that you are writing for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things I decided with the whole Kingdom of Ava series that I would write stories that entertain myself. I wasn't going to listen to the noise of here's what's selling, here's what's not selling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to send it out on submission for people to reject, or no. This is for me. And so I wrote Kill Three Birds to entertain myself. So of course it's filled with puns, right? Bird puns, bird praise. It's hilarious. And so it was for myself, and so I spent a lot of time, and it was easy to write because I wasn't, my mind wasn't clouded by, okay, I need to pitch this to an agent. I need to make sure that for me, if it made sense, if it was fun, I went with it. And so I kind of gave myself permission to write a fun story for myself. And that's something I hadn't done. And every story I write is for me, but there's always that noise of, okay, who am I writing it for, right? Is it going to...
Who's my audience?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, but this one, I was also the audience. And so, well, I do work like in my Sybil Lewis stories. That's my cyberpunk futuristic noir mystery series. That one, I know that there is already an established readership for it, and they are expecting Sybil to do certain things. Mm-hmm. And so there's not. I mean, she grows. She does grow. She does change. But there are certain like beats that have to happen in every Sybil Lewis story because it's simple. Like with Sybil, there has to be an incident where a robot goes haywire because she hates robots. And so in every Sybil Lewis story, there's something about a robot doing something egregious. so that there's certain beats that have to happen because there's a readership that expects that. And so that's a little different than writing like Kill Three Birds, because there was no expectation. It was just, this story was for me. It was for me to have fun being a writer again. And having done this for 20 years, I was, and the year that was last year, I was at that point where I was like, okay, I need to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's a good question too, because the time frame for the first one, you were still working on getting the anthology published for Slay.
Yes.
So like you were juggling that. I remember sponsoring the campaign, and so you had a successful campaign. I know you were like trying to get that, and it took off pretty quickly. I feel like just looking back or whatever, and I know that was like an important part because, like you said, you paid professional rates for.
I did.
The Horror Writers Association consideration for rates. And, I think the neat thing about that is I like to do that too. I like to have, multiple projects I'm working on. And I also like to finish. I like to, just, it's one of the things I love about people. There are a lot of idea people, that's great. I love it. There are less people who take action, which is cool. You need to take action. And then there's even fewer people who are the producers and they finish, they execute on, an idea or a project, or they see it through. So when you're writing that, like you said, you have different kind of disciplines for these other story arcs or, obligations that you have to, your reader. Like you wouldn't want to go to a pancake house and then somebody say, hey, all we serve here is steak. You know what I mean? So when you have this audience expectation, for your characters or whatever, with your series or whatever, how do you address like introducing something new like that? Like you said, you're just like, I'm not going to worry about what, writing to market, and I'm not going to worry about anything else. How did you kind of get over that hurdle of that, that weight on your shoulders?
For the Kingdom of Avis?
Yeah. Like just trying something completely new and different.
Well, I gave myself permission. I said, you know what, Nicole, I don't care if it doesn't sell a single copy. This was for me. And so that took, and it took, I caught myself sometimes going, and especially when you're going through edits, right? You're going back and you're like, yeah. Then I'm like, no, I like that sentence. It works for me, because I'm the audience here, and I left it. And so, but I had to, it took a lot of, it was very freeing to be able to say, this story is for Nicole. And there was some debate between me and my husband whether I would even release it. Right? I was like, I don't even mind sure I'm going to publish this. And he was like laughing. He was reading sections of it. He's like, no, you've got to publish this.
Nice.
And I was like, I don't know. She's Prentice and that whole, and then my husband's like, no, seriously, you had a map done. You have to publish it.
Nice.
So,
nice.
But it was freeing in the sense that I was able to kind of flush the other stuff, and it was freeing also because I was doing slave stuff, and that did have a very specific market, and that did need to sell, right, and that did need to get promoted, and that did need to get marketed, and that did need like all these things. And so I was still in that headspace, but when I sat down to go to Avis, those things were left outside the door. They had to be, because this was my playground. This was the area I got to play. My husband plays video games. He's a big World of Warcraft person. He's part of a guild and all this stuff.
I played it for like 10 years, so I get that. Yeah. I haven't played in a while, but yeah.
He's played for 20 years? Yeah. When he goes there, even though he's physically in the same office space with me, he's not here.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I know what you mean.
And so when I went to the Kingdom of Avis, I was not here. Like I deliberately made a conscious effort to I would shut my door. I would go to other parts of the house. I'm like, I'm going to Avis, and my husband knew that he would take the dogs out of the room. No one bothered me when I was in the Kingdom of Avis, because that was my playground. That was the area where I got to be funny. I got to try new stuff. I got to take roosters and make them, super bad bartenders. Like, it was really, it was my place to play.
I
And
think
so,
it's an important part of our human psyche. You have to have some kind of escapism, some kind of
mhm,
entertainment, because entertainment is just escapism. That's all it is.
mhm,
And I feel like when you're creating your own world like that, or your own entertainment, that's so different than like watching a movie or reading another book or whatever. It's just, I don't know, it is really magical in my opinion that you, when you can create something from nothing,
mhm.
out of your own imagination, and you put it together and you're like, oh, this actually is coherent and it has a story, and it, these characters come to life, even if they are in like a different, world, they're alive. And I think that is so neat, and such a neat way to do things. And I'm glad. I mean, like, I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice. It's so cool that you had that experience, especially like April. Well, you said April last year, right? I mean, that was kind of
Mhm.
like the beginning of all this, shut down stuff, and
Mhm.
everybody's like, well, hopefully it'll be over. Like, they thought it'd be over like 2 months or a month or whatever, and here we are. you know,
Right.
Welcome to 21. uh, but it's so cool that you have your second book out with it. You have a third book planned,
Mhm.
and you could, that's one of the things I feel like is so important is when you're saying, like, when you're reading it, it worked for me. It worked for me. It worked for me. That is so
Mhm.
important, because I feel like there are a lot of folks out there who do, they only do like sell to market or right to market.
Mhm.
They only chase after the trends. They only,
Mhm.
do these things. And I've been kind of wrestling with that same thing with myself lately, because I've been like, well, how do I connect with the audience more? How do I, connect with my readers and, stuff like that more? How do I give them what they want, right? And the I can't remember who it was. Oh my gosh. It was Patrick Roper. He was a guest on my show a couple weeks ago. He was talking to me about George Clooney method, and I was like, "What do you mean by that?" And he said what he does is George Clooney will make a movie for Hollywood, and then he'll make a movie for himself, and he'll make a
Yep.
movie for Hollywood and make a movie for himself. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, "Okay, so I could do other things." And I tell you, here's been kind of like my wrestling part with like this last year. I did the anthology. I wrote back in February last year. I wrote a novella, but it was a really dark horror novella.
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't even know if I want to publish it. Same thing. I was like, I don't even know if I want to publish it,
Mhm.
because it's just really dark. I've been sitting on it since then. I
Oh, wow.
I do Patreon like you do, which I think
Yep.
is a great way to connect with the folks that really support your stuff.
Mhm.
And I started publishing, like, I had this series idea, because I love humor stuff. I love humor, like when you're talking about puns and all, that's like right up my alley. I love that kind of stuff, because like I said, when I was a kid, I read Xanth novels, which is like all about puns. I like
Mhm.
I like like series like Red Dwarf, and I like the horror
That's a
stuff.
great series.
Yeah, I love any kind of like humor type stuff. And that sci-fi Adeline series, that sci-fi series that Rebecca Hammer does, it's a humorous, sci-fi humor. I love that kind of stuff. So I had this idea to do, and I'm still working on it, but I had this idea to do a character called Tex Riddle, The Adventures of Tex Riddle, Space Librarian. And it's like a sci-fi humor thing. So I started writing it, and my brain was like, no, we're not going to make this funny. We're going to make this like a, super serious sci-fi. And I was like, where's this coming from? Where is this, like, really heavy sci-fi stuff coming from? I was like, well, I love humor. I mean, I'd like to joke around and play, have fun with my friends. I mean, I don't ever try to, like, I don't try to do, joke telling, that kind of thing. I just like having a good time, having fun.
Yep.
And I was like, where is this coming from? Why is Tex like, some hard case, and like this one character, her name is Nala, and like her species is like been scattered to the four corners of the universe, and that kind of thing. And they're not even, and she's like this massive strong bodyguard, and And I'm like, where are these characters coming from? And then I had this one called Entok, and he's like a 4 foot tall, purple, pinkish pachyderm humanoid. And I was like, but he's not even funny. And I was like, well, surely, a pachyderm humanoid who's 4 foot tall would have something, funny. And I don't know. It's just so weird because I was like, I'm sitting there trying to write it, the way that I wanted to. And I've had to restart writing it I've written like over 30,000 words, just restarting it. And I'm like, nope, this is not right. Nope, this is not right. So I let it sit, right? And I was like, oh man, I want to write something, because I got into a funk where I didn't really write anything. And I was so focused on publishing the anthology, and I got a short story in the anthology, but I hadn't written anything else this last year. And I was like, you know what? Let me try to do this Patreon thing again. And Bobby Nash, I think you do the same thing with the serialized content with the novels and stuff, right?
I do.
Okay, so Bobby does that, and I was like, I was talking to him about how does that work, and does it, do you feel like it's effective? Do you feel like it's like something people want and that kind of thing, and whatever. So I started writing this other one just maybe about a month ago, and I've been consistent with putting out the weekly chapters. But it's called Dead Planet Run, and it's about a space engineer apprentice. And it's not humorous, but it's not humorous. You know what I mean? It's like, it's got some sci-fi to it, and it has some humor to it. But I've just been stepping into writing that, and I had the same idea that you were talking about, like you're writing it for you. I was like, you know what? I'm going to write this for me, and I'm going to put it out, and I'm just going to see what happens, So, and it is really liberating. It's a lot of fun just writing, without considering the pressures of, well, how is this going to work, or what's that going to work? Is it going to sell? Is it not going to sell? That kind of thing. It's been a lot of fun. So,
and that pressure, not having that pressure, is a huge, like, for me, it was a huge, like, whew.
Yeah.
Now I can really, write the way I want. So
hold that thought, because I want to ask you more about that. Everybody, you're tuning into WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. So, Nicole, did you feel like when you, like you said, you gave yourself permission, did you feel like, wow, this is the way I should have been writing the whole time? Because that's how I felt.
I feel like in my initial novels, when I was a lot greener, that I wrote with abandon. I wrote what I wanted to write. I told a story I wanted to tell. Like, I wrote with abandon. Mm-hmm. But over the last 10 years of being a publisher and trying to get published and trying to sell copies, like, I feel like that spark of writing with abandon was kind of corralled, and so I realized when I was writing the Kingdom of Ava stuff that, oh wait, this is how I always used to write, right?
Yeah.
But I had lost that and hadn't realized that over time that had been corralled and eroded by the demands of being a professional writer.
Yeah.
Trying to get.
Hold on one second. I think we lost her. Hold on one second. I'm gonna call her right back. I don't know what's going on with my phone today.
Hello.
Hey, Nicole, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened with the phone there. Lost you.
Okay.
Hey, so we're live on air. I have to tell you that because we're on the radio. But you were saying that you had written like that when you were younger, and it kind of had been corralled, and then you realized when writing the Kingdom of Ava stuff that you had kind of gone back to the way you wrote originally. You were like, wow, this is how I wrote originally, or can you tell me more about that?
This is sure. So I realized that over time I had allowed myself to have like inner critics kind of dictate what I was producing.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hadn't actually done the work on myself as a writer to go back and say, okay, inner critic, kind of balance what's authentic criticism versus what is actually fun for me to write. Yeah. And the joy of writing, writing over time has become more labor intensive and more like work than It is when
Mm.
you're writing, right? Because
Yeah,
you
you
have
just
bills
hit
to
my
pay.
button right there. That's exactly how I've been feeling. Like it's been more of work than fun, especially with
Right.
publishing. And you're not just responsible for yourself, but you're responsible for, the other authors, and
Hmm.
the success of the book. And, and, sometimes it feels like you're the only one doing anything with it. You're like,
Sometimes, yes.
yeah, I mean, like that's one of the things. Like like I've encouraged people to do their part, and people do, what they're gonna do, and sometimes it's just
Hmm.
like, wow. And then you have other people like, like they're the champions of it, and you're like, wow, thank you.
Right. And with every anthology, you get that. You get, I mean, if you have like half of them who are like, oh yeah, I want to, and they go out, they promote it, they promote hard, and then you have the other half who are like, okay,
I
I'm
wrote
in it,
I wrote a
thanks.
story. It's good enough.
Yep, it's great, thanks.
I love how
Yeah.
you were talking about, because I felt like when I started writing this other series for me, and to put out with, and I've only been putting out with my Patreons first, because I'm like, well, hey, they're paying me, a small fee a month, and I want to give them it first. I want to do, I want. It's like, what can I do for them? You know what I mean? And I was like,
Hmm.
well, this would be something that I can do where they get to see the stuff first, and I'm literally writing it as I go. I didn't outline it this time. Like that's another thing that kind of like I'm just gonna
Hmm.
go with, not pantsing, because I know, I mean, like I innately have this like, story structure in my head of what I want, but I'm just kind of being free with it and saying, hey, you know what? Because I only got into writing fiction like in 2018, Nicole, and so the first one that I published, that Blood Thrasher one, it was a 10,000 word novelette or novella or whatever they call it, and I wrote that in like 6 weeks, and it was so like, and that's not a fast period of time, everybody. Just looking back, but at the time it was for me. But I wrote it in 6 weeks, and I was like, boom, 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 boom. No, nothing other than just I want to get this story out, and it was like boom, and that was the most fun I'd had writing as an adult, because most of my writing was business based, academic, those
Hmm.
kind of things, and it was so much fun. And so like this one that I'm writing for Patreon, it feels the same way. It's like I'm having fun doing it again.
Hmm.
And when you're talking about the Kingdom of Ava stuff, I was like, oh, this is so cool that you developed this gem. You built this universe of your own. So
Yeah, no, and it actually resonated really well with readers in a way that I wasn't like anticipating.
yeah.
Because it's quirky. They're birds. I mean, they're bird clans. What? I mean, it's a very odd mashup, and so and it's fantasy unlike they've seen fantasy before, and so so
I think it's a neat take. I mean, the avian fantasy, like you talking about World of Warcraft. There's a whole like faction in there of
mhm.
bird people or whatever, but not this. Like it's like, yeah, they're birds out there, and you've used stuff that's relatable and already there, but you created something new from something that's been there. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I think it's pretty cool that you came up with all this. So talk to me about like when you said that you'll go into your writing cubby or whatever, and you're like, I'm working on Kingdom of Avis. What was that like?
So and I don't do it with I don't do it with everything I write, but with Avis I did because I needed to be immersive, immersed in that world. And so my mom was like, I don't. Many people don't like. What does that mean? It means I have to go there. So mentally, I have to be in Avis, or in this case, I had to be in Sullen Day, right? So that is
Mm-hmm.
music I put on. That is one of the things I do is I spend time looking at pictures.
Mm.
And so I in my OneNote I actually have pictures that are influenced. So this is what this chapel would look like. This is what the faculty apartments would look like. Here are the things that I want to make sure that I have. They're visual cues. Um, and so I spent a lot of time building those things out or going and watching YouTube videos or reading articles, doing the research part of it. so that when I want to embellish it or alter it to fit, the Kingdom of Davis, I have it there to look back to and go. And sometimes, like, my patrons were able to get like a visual tour of gold, right? One of the things I did was I took a whole bunch of pictures and kind of said, "This is," and I gave like a visual tour.
Hmm.
Here is the inspiration for, so they can see, like, here's what I was envisioning when I was writing this story. And so my patrons were able to get that exclusive background look at how I built out this gold in the surrounding area for Killthree Birds. And so I spend a lot of time looking at art. I spend a lot of time looking at landscapes and buildings, and because every nest in Avis is different. So this one, like, Gold is a rural mountain community. It's a very small town. There's a lake and mountain ranges. It's cold. Like, there's not, right. So, but she travels 2 hours down by train into Sullendale, and it's Mediterranean waters. It's on the ocean. So it's a very different climate. And
You know,
so,
talking about you calling it gold, we have a Gould Elementary. It's spelled the exact same way, Gould. That's why I said Gould.
mhm,
And so that, I think that's another interesting take on just nuances of things. So like people that would say, New
mhm,
Orleans versus New Orleans, or like I can't
mhm.
even say it right because I've got some friends from there, but the way they say it's totally different. And I love that you have that. You had the exploration, and like this is how I came across this, and I did this, and
Mhm,
given that virtual tour, um, because that's the kind of stuff that people, I feel like they want to see it,
mhm.
and they find it interesting. And what a day that we live in, like what a time we live in, because I mean, like, even 10 years ago this wouldn't have been a possibility. um,
Right. No, I agree. I agree completely.
especially you've been doing this for 20 years or so. I mean, like, you've seen a lot change, and
Yes.
it seems like this is what people want. I mean, like, honestly, I've been moving more towards getting off of like my personal social media stuff. I still post stuff there, but I've been focusing more like on my website and doing stuff with my Patreon and all that. And just because it, I feel like if I'm going to put in the time and the work and the effort of creating content, I don't want to spam my family and friends with it. I'm going to share it with them because obviously a lot of the folks that connect with me on Facebook, I use it kind of like LinkedIn, and a lot of the folks on
Mhm.
there, other authors and creators and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
I love them to death. The ones that I really get annoyed with, though, are the ones that are like, "Hey, let's be friends," and then, "Did I tell you I've got a new book out?" And like, I don't even know you, dude. I don't know you. Happened to me
Yes,
last week again. I'm sure it happens to you too.
it
But
does.
I'm like, and here's the other thing too. Like, I don't know. You probably feel the same way. I'm just saying, but I don't ever expect anybody to buy my books. I'm always pleased and tickled when they want to buy the book,
Yes.
and especially if they actually read it, even more so. Um, but I'm not going to try to spam people. I try to share stuff. I try to, whatever. But so the reason why I started pushing more towards my website and like the email list and my Patreon and stuff is because I feel like the folks that really want that stuff, that's where they want to go. You know what I mean? Like, they're still going to see it on
Mhm.
Facebook or whatever. But if they're saying, "Hey man, I'm going to give you $1 a month," or whatever it is to support Patreon, they're doing that. Like, they don't have to do that. I always feel like it's such a blessing. It's like, wow, you support my work, that you're willing to give me $1 or $5 or whatever it is.
Right. No, I agree completely.
Yeah, and I mean,
I agree completely.
it's almost, to me, like, I love when people will share or like the stuff. I really am always appreciative of it. But when you got, like, I've got a small group of patrons, and I love each one of them for supporting my art and everything. And I really dig when they give me feedback or they reply. Like, I'll send them a little message.
Mhm.
I'm like, "Hey, thank you so much," or whatever. And so how do you feel about that with your community that you built?
I have a very small patron group too, and they are really awesome people. Like I ask them questions like, "What kind of perks do you guys want?" And they're always very receptive. I ask them like they usually they'll give me feedback on the story, suggestions, say things they like. They're a good group, and I'm very happy to have them. Um, Most of them are writers, fellow writers or other writers, and some of them are just general readers who like the work that I do. So it's really nice to have them. I try to think of different things to give them because, like you, I one of the things I did for them was I created a series of stickers for. They look like so like they're for Kill Three Birds. There's like roosters and there are hawks
Oh,
and there are
that's so
vultures and stuff.
cool.
They all have like character cards, but they're stickers, and so I sent them to all of my patrons, and they're the only
Oh,
ones that have them. And there's like 6 stickers per pack, and
that
so
is
each
so
one got six.
cool.
Yeah, they're the only ones that got them. It's like a Patreon exclusive, and they were very excited when they got them. They were super happy
That
because
I
it's
mean,
like.
you know, I love that. That is such a cool thing. I love. It's so crazy because you know the things that I noticed like doing conventions because I've done conventions for a while. I used to buy, sell, and trade Transformer toys, and I'm not ashamed to say that because I love Transformer toys and comic books.
Mhm.
But people love stickers and they love buttons and they like. I feel like people like those so much stickers and buttons.
Mhm.
And that's so cool that you
Stickers
made
and
these little
buttons.
character cards that are actually stickers and you send them out to them. That's
Yep.
so cool.
It's
Um,
like a rooster. Yeah, that was fun.
oh, I
Go
want to
ahead.
ask you more about that after the break. We've got to do
Mhm.
the half an hour break. And then, Bass, do you mind playing some more? And then we're gonna do the commercial. They're not commercials. I'm sorry, everybody. They're called underwriting, which I get switched up sometimes. The difference between like a commercial and an underwriting statement is that they're pretty much the same, except a commercial has a call to action that wants to sell you something, and underwriting does not. So I apologize for saying those commercial station break, but our underwriting station break. So here's Sebastian Messer playing for us.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming. And it doesn't just mean that we are a voice for the community. It also means that we are counting on the community to keep us going. And you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to wruu.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation. And thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
This is a message from the Georgia State Department of Public Health. There is a State of Georgia hotline people can call with questions or if they think they may have been exposed to the COVID-19 virus. It is 1-844-442-2681. If you believe you're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 or have been exposed to the novel coronavirus, please contact your primary care doctor, an urgent care clinic, or your local federally qualified healthcare center. Please do not show up at an emergency room or healthcare facility unannounced. More information can be found at dph.georgia.gov. From our cobblestone streets to our stately homes, discover Savannah's maritime history and what makes Savannah, Savannah. One of the hidden secrets of Savannah is the Gardens of the Ships of the Sea Museum. Picnic here and enjoy our complimentary Wi-Fi. More information can be found at shipsofthesea.org.
This is WRUU-LP.
All right, everybody, we are back. And Nicole, thank you for being with me on the show today. I really have enjoyed talking with you about your new work, and I think it's so fun. I mean, like when you're talking about just kind of connecting with the way that you wrote originally, it's very interesting to kind of think about that, because I feel like as adults, that mirrors our life, right? Like we start off as young adults and we're kind of like, fast and free and like, oh yeah, I'm going to, conquer the world type thing. And then you kind of get socially conditioned to, well, you got to pay bills and you got to do this and you got to do that. And, so it kind of mirrors that, and then
It does. Mm-hmm.
it's nice, like when you're talking about it, because that's how I've been feeling with the this new series. And one of the things that I've been doing the last couple of months is just trying to filter through and refocus on what matters to me, and my relationships with people. Like, it's my priority. The people that matter, I feel like, are the folks that not only, am I turning towards them, they're turning towards me, and I've never been one to chase after anybody. Like if somebody says, hey, if they're whatever, if they show me how they are, and I always thank them for it, because I'd rather know who somebody is than not. And so I've never chased after anybody, but I've been focusing more on my relationships with folks that I'm friends with, and the folks that I like and admire. Like, honestly, I mean, I have people on my show that I appreciate and I admire. I get to decide who wants to, come on the show or not. And I try to focus on, those folks that I really like and respect, because there's only so much time in the day.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate you. I feel like what you're doing is so important. And, that you, like I said earlier, you put the work out. That's a big factor, I think, for people is, putting the work out and doing it. So
I think last year taught many of us the value of what's important, what's really important, right? At the end of the day, what do you really value versus what we're kind of conditioned in or to value. Value people over things. If nothing else, value people over things, because life is fleeting. And I think many people are coming to that reckoning where, when you're home with your family, that family time, it was mandated, right? You couldn't go anywhere, so you had to deal with your family or the people that you share a space with. And then once people have rediscovered those connections, right? It was like, wait a minute, I remember this. I remember playing board games with my family, or I remember watching a movie with my family, or I remember making dinner because you can't get takeout, right? So those discovery, that return, basically a return to those deeper connections, and kind of like a grounding, right? We were soaring, and now we're kind of grounded, and that we could put our feet back in the sand. I think that has happened to a lot of people. Many
I agree.
people.
I feel like a lot of folks have kind of figured that out, and not on any like bad level. I don't feel like people were intentionally not paying attention. I just feel like we get, like you were talking about conditioning, social conditioning, we get so caught up in consumerism, and we're constantly being sold to. I mean, like 24/7, we're being sold to from the time we wake up in the morning until we go to bed. We're being sold to, like, you should live this way, you should look this way, or you should do these things, or whatever. We're constantly being bombarded with that. And I feel like that this reset for a lot of folks, because there have been a lot of people who have lost their lives. People have lost loved ones that they didn't expect to lose. Nobody ever expects to lose a loved one, but with the pandemic and all, losing somebody prematurely, I feel like hit home with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so like you said, cooking dinners together, it's like, well, I mean, we don't have to go out and spend the night out to enjoy company with each other. We can do it right here at home at the house. And I feel like that's so cool, because it is like kind of reconnecting to like what's important in life, and and it's not the things, it's the people, it's the relationships with people. And I feel like that's so cool. When you were talking about like building, Avis, I could hear it in your voice when you're talking about it. I mean, like, it's been a stressful year for like just about everybody. And it's so enriching and so nice to hear you doing that, because like, it's a ripple effect. I mean, you never know with you just talking about that how it can affect and help somebody else. I mean, I'm sure when those folks got those sticker cards, those character cards, they're like, what? Because I mean, like, even I don't have a set of them, but even just thinking about it, I was like, that is so cool. I mean, like, that's just so neat. As a kid, I used to collect baseball cards, and they used to have these Marvel character cards, like Marvel cards.
I remember those.
Oh yeah, I used to love those. And matter of fact, we went to the comic book store before we came on the show. I'm still, like, I picked up a new Incredible Hulk, or the Immortal Hulk, and it's got this really cool cover with the Thing and the Hulk sitting at a diner, and a waitress is standing there, and I'm like, well, man, this is I like that kind of stuff. I really love good conversations with people. I mean, that's one of the things I try to do with this show, is like talking to people about what they're doing, and I enjoy it. How do you and I don't want to sound funny, I'm not trying to like flip the coin here, but how do you kind of sort through the noise out there? Because like I was saying about the folks that'll connect, hey, you want to buy my book? I just met you. I mean, how do you sort through that noise?
I do lots of things. Like, on YouTube there are ambient like settings, or rain and snow, but the settings are really diverse. It's like listening to rain in a cabin, listening to rain in a medieval bar. Like, there's like all these different kinds of things. And so I actually have a playlist of them, and it actually helps too with like sometimes it helps me with scene setting. So I'll go in like, okay, what if it's snowing in a cabin, and then I can look at, like, I can hear what it sounds like, I can look at what it looks like. It's a Greek bath. Like, there are so many of them. Like, there are literally thousands of them. But I use a lot of ambient noise when I'm just like creating, but not writing a chapter, but just like researching and stuff like that, to kind of block out the noise. I also have like really stringent controls in place for my social media. So I don't get a lot of, hey, let's be friends. And I just delete those automatically. I'm really stringent about who I let on my friends page. On the because I have like a Mocha Memoirs fan page, and I also have a Nicole Givens Kurtz fan page. And so for a lot of people, if I don't know them, I'll just say, hey, friend me over here, follow my page, to keep that low. But I still, every once in a while, want to squeak through just like you get, and I'm like, okay, no, delete. So for me, I also live like in the country.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
I live on like an acre of land surrounded on 3/4 sides by like trees.
Oh, nice.
So like dense trees that are like really, like, they've been here for hundreds of years. So that it's like someone just carved out like a space for my house. And there's a creek that flows on my property as well.
Oh, there you go. That's just so nice.
I get out and I walk around. I play with my puppies. Like, I do things to kind of prep for writing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard when you're a publisher too, as you well know. One of the challenges is making sure you're able to get the message out about the works that you publish because you want to support those authors, but you also have to balance with work for yourself as an author and yourself as a person, a
Mm-hmm.
wife, a mom,
Yeah, I mean,
etc.
that definitely factors in because holistically, you're not just a writer, you're not just a
Mhm.
publisher. That's just something you do, but it doesn't define who you are as a person, And kind of going back to that consumerism thing, I think we, as a society, we are conditioned to think of, well, you are what you do. You are, because if you ask somebody, hey, how are you, or tell me about yourself, instinctively they'll say, well, I do this or I do that, a lot of times people won't talk about, things that are like a character trait or uh, focusing on like who they are as a person or,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And I feel like it's because we are socially conditioned so much. And that's one of the reasons why I go back to the escapism part, like with writing and fantasy. And, like I used to play a lot of video games and I haven't for the last couple of years because I've been focusing more on writing, probably the last 5 years or so. Um, but I feel like that is important, because it's not just one thing. Like we enjoy things, we do things, we work, we do things for enjoyment and for pleasure, and but those don't define who we are as a person. They just are, things that we do, right? And
Right.
I feel like when you were talking about that kind of like that reset earlier, that's been an awakening for people because a lot of people have lost their jobs, they weren't
Yep.
able to work, and it's like, well, now what? I can't go out to the restaurants and eat out all the time. Now what?
Like
And
I lost my job in my full time job in no, October.
oh no, I'm sorry to hear that.
So right, it was kind of one of those, and I did. It took literally like all of November for me to come to terms with the fact that I am an unemployed that way, but I've like shifted to being like a freelance worker.
Mm-hmm.
And so the shift in identity though was traumatic. It
Yeah.
was, and I'm still wrestling with this lack because that was a part of my identity, right? Nicole always had a job. Nicole always worked since the time I was 13. So not having a traditional 9 to 5 um, is still a work in progress for me because most of my adult life, actually all like since I was 13, I'm 46, trying to has been around my work identity
Mm-hmm.
and without having like a traditional work identity. And now not having that and transitioning to I'm a freelancer, I'm a full time author now, trying to make that identity match or it's not a huge, but I wrestled with that. I
Mm-hmm.
wrestled with it for a good 2 months before I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. This is who I am. Um, but again, you're right. So much of our culture puts what we do in direct connection with who we are, and that doesn't work, right?
Yeah, I
That's
think
not.
people are finding that out. I really do. Everybody, you tuning in today to WRULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. I think that a lot of people have been finding that out, and I had that same, I had that same issue, but I was in my 20s because
Mhm.
I've been working since I was. I mean, like when I was knee high to a grasshopper, I was cutting grass and doing yard work and stuff like that, and then like I was 14, I got my first little part-time job when I was allowed to, and I started working full-time at like 16. And so I know exactly what you're saying. It's like this is my work ethic or whatever. And I was in my 20s because I was just killing myself. I was working like 90 plus hours a week, trying to go to school and do these other things. And I was like, why am I doing this? And a big part of it was take care of my family and love my kids and my wife and take care of them. But I was like, there's got to be a better way. And it's so crazy. I was talking with a person earlier this year, and I was like, well, who do you want to be in 5 years or whatever? And the person started listing out all these different goals of things that they wanted to do. And I was like, no. Who do you want to be in 5 years? Not what do you want to do in the next 5 years? And they're like, well, I never thought about that question. And so for me, I wanted to be a helper. I wanted to be a person that could help other people, and to, that for me is like, I love doing that. I love, that's my root, is like being a helper and helping other people. But I wanted to be a good father. I wanted to be a compassionate person. I want to be empathetic, all these different character traits or whatever. But I want to be a person that is, there to help other people, and that I can help myself. I can be self-sufficient, but also not so self-sufficient that I can't say, hey, I need help, or be too proud to, say, hey, I need help, because that was another thing. Being a, workaholic person, I was, so enthralled in that I never really asked for help, So that's something I've wrestled with too. And, I feel I've seen that this year so much with folks, and it's not easy. And I try to remind people like, hey, you're not your job. You're not, these things. You are this, this person, this wonderful person. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it's like, nah, it's just a bunch of metaphysical mumbo jumbo, and I'm like, no, it really is. Like, if you think about like who you are first, and how you, and that was one of the reasons why I talk about, focusing on my relationships with people. Like, I could care less about the things that come and go. Cause I mean, like, honestly, even like this phone that we're talking on now, it doesn't matter. This thing is like one of the most advanced technological things that we've had in, human time frame. And it does not even matter. What matters is like, here I am talking with you about stuff that we enjoy doing. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's my spiel on that. We've got about 5 minutes left, Nicole. Can you kind of give me just a wrap up of like the new stuff that you got going on, and some of the other cool stuff that you're doing with, your publishing, and then also with Mocha Memoirs Press?
Oh, right. So we have a lot of interesting and fantastic titles coming out in the next 2 months. The first being, of course, A Theft Most Foul, A Kingdom of Avis Mystery will come out January 20th. February 5th, we'll have Slice Girls, an anthology of women horror writer stories. Definitely check it out. It is a charity anthology, and every dime goes to a charity that empowers women, to be determined. Then in March, we have coming out Reality Junction, which is it's a cyberpunk futurist noir novel, which I'm very excited about, because that's like one of my other favorite like guilty genres. That's one I write in, but I also love reading those. So we have a lot coming out. I encourage your readers and listeners to sign up for the Mocha Memoirs Press newsletter. That way you can stay abreast of what titles are coming out from our publishing house.
Awesome.
And, yep.
That's awesome. I want to share too. It's February. We're releasing Mark Allen Gunnell's supernatural thriller called 2B. It's like a haunted apartment story, and so I'm excited about that. That'll be the first standalone author that I'm publishing, Nicole. So
nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then I'm looking forward to it. I actually I'm gonna talk off air with you more about this, but I'm working with Continual, and I've got an event in April, so I'm gonna be I want to be talking. I don't want to put it out there yet, but everybody knows we've talked about the Continual thing before, and when we did the book release for Valhalla Books. Mm-hmm. But they've been wonderful. I think it's pretty cool, especially like, talking about everybody being home and that kind of thing. Continual, or Continual, however they say it, is it's like a virtual convention. Everybody, since a lot of these conventions had to shut down, they do these virtual things where you get to talk with the guests and the authors and that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty excited. I'm looking forward to our thing that we're going to be doing in April. I'm going to actually talk to you offline about that, Nicole, too, because I feel like it'd be kind of neat to partner up with you and do something about it. So, but thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun talking to you, Adam.
You too. You too. I love looking at all the stuff. I'm gonna have to go back and pick up the Kingdom of Avis books now. I'm like, oh, look at this. It's cool. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You are listening to the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. And my special guest today has been Nicole Givens Kurtz. And Nicole, one more time with the websites.
Oh, sure. You can find me at Nicole Givens Kurtz, that's with a Z.net, mochamemoirspress.com, on Twitter at Nicole G. Kurtz, and on Facebook at Nicole G. Kurtz.
Awesome. Thank you again, Nicole.
Thank you.